Final Fantasy VII Rebirth is without a doubt set to be one of the biggest games of the year, with the developer continuing its Final Fantasy VII Remake trilogy and following up on what turned out to be a very successful first installment. Excitement surrounding Rebirth is high, and based on everything that has been revealed about the action RPG so far, it's easy to understand why. With its release now not too far away, here we're going to take a look at a few key details you should know about. Setting details. Final Fantasy VII Remake was focused entirely on the Midgar section, which means Rebirth is set to step out into the larger world outside of the dystopian city. Having defeated the Whispers and seemingly started defying fate in ways that were entirely unexpected, Cloud and company will continue their fight against Shinra, while also stepping up their efforts to put a stop to Sephiroth's plans. Of course, like its predecessor, Final Fantasy VII Rebirth is also going to deviate from the original setting in some key ways, but more on that in a bit. Where does it end? We now know that Final Fantasy VII Remake Saga is going to be a trilogy, so what does that mean for where Final Fantasy VII Rebirth will end? As many have guessed, it's been confirmed that the party's fateful encounter with Sephiroth at the Forgotten City will serve as the game's climax. Does that mean that Aerith's death is going to be the note that Rebirth will end on? Well, what to expect from the ending? Final Fantasy VII Remake's last few hours were full of surprises, and it looks like the developer wants to repeat that with Rebirth. Obviously, the details on how the game will end and how or if it will change things are going to remain shrouded in mystery until we actually get our hands on the game, but it does look like things will take an unexpected turn. Speaking about how the game will end, in an interview with Game Informer, the developer stated that they have depicted things in a way that will bring about a new emotion and a new feeling for all players. Playable characters. As you'd expect, Final Fantasy VII Rebirth is expanding Remake's cast of playable party members. For starters, Cloud, Barret, Tifa, and Aerith are, of course, going to be playable once again, while Red 13, who appeared in Remake as an AI-controlled companion character towards the end, will fully join the party as well. In addition, Yuffie, who we played as in Final Fantasy VII Remake Intergrade's episode Intermission, while also being a playable character, as will the new and heavily introduced fan favorite Cait Sith. Meanwhile, Sephiroth and Zack will also be playable in certain sections of the game. Oh, and speaking of those two, expanded role for Zack Fair. Zack's death told all those years ago was one of the most important moments in the entire game, one that went on to define essentially Cloud's entire arc. When Final Fantasy VII Remake ended, however, it did so with the surprising reveal that Zack was somehow still alive. The full mysteries surrounding how that happened will be unraveled, at least partly so, in Rebirth, which is set to give Zack an expanded role. How much more significant of a character he will be now that he's, not dead, well, that remains to be seen. Expanded role for Sephiroth. Sephiroth already had a prominent role in Final Fantasy VII Remake. Rebirth will continue that trend, with the developer having confirmed that Sephiroth will have a much bigger role to play. Speaking about what to expect from him in the game, the developer said in an interview with Game Informer, "We felt it was necessary to have this very clear depiction of how he came to be the person that he is now in Rebirth." Even as a developer creating this game, seeing Sephiroth discover the truth and fall further and further into darkness, like falling from grace, and depicting this in his expressions, I could truly feel bad for him. Throughout the course of Rebirth, I believe players will not only grow to relate to and understand Cloud, but also Sephiroth through this game so much more. The developer added, Remake covers your encounter with Sephiroth, and now within Rebirth, we wanted to make Sephiroth this very clear antagonist and target for the characters to go and pursue through their journey in Rebirth. Within the original setting, Sephiroth was not seen very much in the world map, but in this title, we put this element forward. Vince Valentine. Vince Valentine is one of the more significant characters that Cloud and company cross paths with after leaving Midgar in the original setting. However, he will not be a full party member. Seeing as he will be introduced in the later sections of the game, much like Red 13 was in Remake, Vince is going to accompany the party, but he will do so as an AI-controlled companion. Meanwhile, the developer has also confirmed that he will be voiced by Matt Mercer, who's known for a wide variety of roles in games, among other things, including Cole Cassidy in Overwatch, Goro Majima in Yakuza Like a Dragon, and more. More characters. Final Fantasy VII Rebirth is set to expand on Remake's cast of characters, with several other additions too. Ex-Shinra scientist and skilled pilot Sid Highwind will, of course, have a role to play, though he won't be playable, while Cloud and company will also lock horns with Elena, who is continuing to hunt the party. Bugenhagen, the Elder of Cosmo Canyon, and Red 13's adoptive grandfather will also show up, while we will also see a familiar face in the form of Biggs, who in Final Fantasy VII Remake's final moments was revealed to have avoided his fate from the original setting and survived the collapse of the Sector 7 plate. Open world structure. Final Fantasy VII Remake was very much a linear game, something it did get some amount of criticism for, but its upcoming sequel is looking to expand its horizons significantly. Final Fantasy VII Rebirth is set to be a fully open world experience, with the entire world map expanded upon. That said, though the map will be an entirely seamless one, not all of it will be accessible to players at all times. New areas will become available as you progress further, while certain sections will also limit you to certain locations and regions. Takes cues from The Witcher 3. Something that the developer is seemingly putting a much greater deal of emphasis on with Rebirth is the quality of side content. In particular, the development team took cues from The Witcher 3 in the kind of side content it offers, with extra focus being placed on setting-driven quests and snippets focused on developing characters and their relationships. Speaking to Game Informer, the developer said, regarding titles like The Witcher 3, which has that open-world role-playing type element, we did some extensive research into these types of titles and looked at it as a baseline, in which Rebirth should be a type of title that can stand alongside it and have the type of content that would be satisfying to its players. The developer wanted to give players the freedom of choice in deciding whether they wanted to dedicate themselves solely to the campaign and no side quests at all. Or there might be people who want to delve into the side content and go really in depth into the character relationships, or just balance of those two. The developer wanted to give that freedom. Synergy moves. If you've ever played Final Fantasy VII Remake Intergrade, you'll likely remember Yuffie and Sonan's combo attacks in episode Intermission. That mechanic is being applied to all of Final Fantasy VII Rebirth as one of its bigger combat improvements. Similar to limit breaks, synergy moves will run on a gauge, which, once filled up, will let you pick between a variety of pairings of two characters, allowing them to use their combined powers to unleash different moves with different effects. Summons. It's natural to be curious, and even excited, about the summons in each new Final Fantasy release. So, what should we expect from Rebirth on that front? Well, the game will feature both new summons and those who are returning from Remake, with the lineup including the likes of Bahamut Arisen, Titan, Phoenix, Odin, Ramuh, and others. What's more, it's been confirmed that the game will also feature new extended side content based on a summon who did not feature in the original setting. Main setting length. As you may have guessed by now, Final Fantasy VII Rebirth is going to be a noticeably larger game than its 2020's predecessor. That will extend to its main setting as well. The developer has confirmed that even for players who are mostly ignoring optional content and just sticking to the main setting, the game will be over 40 hours long. In comparison, the critical path in Final Fantasy VII Remake was roughly 30 hours in length. Total length. Side content is something that's going to be a central experience in Final Fantasy VII Rebirth. And in addition to trying to hit a certain level of quality, the game is also going to hit a startling level of quantity. According to the developers, players who do a good amount of side content will likely get 60 hours of gameplay out of the game, while completionists can get even more than 100 hours of playtime. PS5 exclusivity. Final Fantasy VII Remake and Final Fantasy XVI both launched as PlayStation exclusives, so it's no surprise at this point that Final Fantasy VII Rebirth will follow suit. Its exclusivity window, however, is just 3 months long, which is much shorter than of its predecessor. Of course, that doesn't mean the game will definitely come to other platforms 3 months after its PS5 release. After all, Final Fantasy VII Remake still hasn't come to Xbox, nearly 4 years on from launch. But we can probably expect at least a PC port in the not too distant future, or we hope so at least. And with that, we reach the end of this video. Have anything to say? Let us know in the comments below. Also, we upload new videos every single day on Gaming Bolt, so please consider subscribing as it really helps us out. Thanks for watching.